BIC episode number 98. No Mayo Monday, but it is a victory Monday for the Packers. Not so much for the other teams, although, the Ravens are looking pretty good, so we do have a couple of those things going on there. We've got that. And as we speak, I've got the very first Amazon Prime NHL game of the week. It's exactly what you expect. Like, it's basically just a hockey game. But, you know, Malkin is 2 goals away from 500, so maybe tonight. Question mark? Who knows? We can say. And we've got the Monday Nighter. We've got the Darkness playing. Oh, it's a chock full sports calendar. We got the ALCS going. We got the Monday Nighter. We've got the hockey game. We've got all this. Mark Messier's talking. All kinds of excitement. We'll talk about a couple of mini related things on a more controlled and truncated episode of the BIC podcast. All right. The last couple of episodes have been steadily creeping upward in terms of runtime. So we're going to try to keep this one under control. I got a quick turnaround, and we've got a couple of things that are going to happen. Although, let me say right off the top, there are going to be potentially some exciting happenings in AMG Collectibles land, amgcollectibles.ca and the AMG Collectibles YouTube channel, because at the time that this drops, there will not be an AMG podcast episode.
Oh,
I know. But if you subscribe to the channel, there may be a live stream coming on later in the afternoon. And the podcast episode will appear next week, but it will be later on in the week. The exact date and time and everything will be reported on, but you may get a live stream and a podcast episode this week. We're recording this. It hasn't happened yet, but by the time this drops, you will notice the absence of a podcast episode, but then it'll magically appear a little bit later on in the week because it's still going to get recorded. But the live stream is also pretty much, we've got it planned out more or less, and I've got a couple of things that I need to work. That's why I say, I've got a lot of stuff I still need to do before this day runs out. So we're going to get into it. But a little bit of a spoiler there, amgcollectibles.ca, and thank you to AMG for supporting the podcast and the channel. So we're going to get right to business. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this, and we're going to get into a couple of things we need to get to. First of all, I want to thank everybody who voted on the last episode. We did set a new record turnout, new record number of votes, so we did that. It was a hotly contested race. A lot of you did not appreciate the Ultimate Warrior, although I understand he was never my favorite, but I liked it with the prop that went along with it, so that was fine. But it was a very close race. It was 49% to 47%. The most razor of margins with 47 votes, so it was a very razor-thin margin. The Monsters of the Gridiron narrowly defeated by the Bubblegum Blowing Champion card. And that means the third option won this week. So Eric, take a bow. The Bubblegum did defeat the Monsters of the Gridiron by the narrowest of margins. And again, this is the only legitimate democracy in the hobby. We count every single vote, so your vote does indeed count because it came right down to the wire.
Congratulations, Eric.
I thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's participation and making me world champion yet again.
Look at this guy. Look at this guy. So yes, we did get a full participation on that one. And the fact that your votes came in, like I said, it came right down to the last couple votes. So now you know. You were able to get in there all the way through. Now, last week we did have one comment, and I'll touch on it here. So Zach says, Carlos spends $30 on lunch? Dang, it's like downtown Toronto, my friend. You get charged $25 for the air. $30 for lunch? A pittance. A pittance. That's why hitting the like button is so critical. So important. You got to hit the like button because Eric pays for it. So that's it for that one. A couple of things that we'll touch on here as well. All right, let's get to this week's card of the week. As I said, we'll zip through a couple of our segments to give us enough time so we're not rushed. And we will touch on one or two things. Go ahead, Brandon.
I just want to, before you put anything on screen, I want to apologize.
Apologize in advance.
Yeah, because I did not pick this card with the intended perception of what it's going to have.
It's only going to be worse when we show all three cards simultaneously and one after another. It's only going to be worse.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to prepare the viewing audience.
Yeah,
And
you just made it
listeners,
worse.
you might even be able to hear it. It's so bad.
So this week's card of the week is, I'm going to say at the very minimum, PG-13. You know, we might have to go a level above that. Like, what are we thinking? Like, it's not PG. We got to go above that.
I think so with including Eric's, like we're treading on the AI territory. So it's kind of like what your imagination or what the robotic imagination would be of this. It might be above PG-13 because the imagination might take it there.
Well, listen, I can't control that. All I'm going to say is this is going to be a tale in 3 images. And there's going to be jokes.
Literally.
And this is the 5% more mature version. I want you to note this is the 5% more mature, which is frightening if you really think about it. So I'm going to begin here. I'm going to share the first one, and I'm going to start off with this one was Eric's contribution to it. We're going to start with that one, and then I'll share the other two. It is a real card, so we're going to get into it here. And let me share the first image here. This card, and I want to remind everybody, so in the video version, you're going to get the full display of this. I'm going to let Eric explain it, but I just want to point out, this is the same man who has moral opposition to Emmanuel in space, and yet he gives us this.
I am trying to go for the win. This came across the counter.
Wow, he's pandering to sex sells. This is shameless.
And a lot at the shop. All of us at the shop were like, what the holy hell is this? Because everyone knows I like bicycles. This was, I was inundated with this and a couple of others. And I said, that would be a great card of the week. So I took a snapshot of it. And it is like a metallic, robotic woman riding a road bicycle. And
I have one question, Eric.
Only one?
Well, for clarification purposes, I'm not a professional bicycler. But isn't that a man's bike?
They don't really do men and women's bikes anymore with the swoopy down to top tube anymore. They don't really do that.
Yeah, at this point they're pretty much the same. There's just a bike. A bike is a bike is a bike.
Smaller because women are shorter typically. Yeah, but
aside from that, there's no real difference.
Just ride quote men's bikes, but yeah, this is kind of a robot, futuristic, all silver woman that is in great shape.
Oh, I'm glad you were paying close attention. Yes, go on.
And she is going to cycle through the galaxy, visiting one planet at a time.
Is she on the steroids?
Oh, easily. She's not using regular fuel. She's using clearly like super premium.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. So Eric won't say it. I will. Because on the back of the card, we have the image of the back of the card as well. And it is sexy robots and pinups, which makes you kind of remember, kind of make you think a lot. It really answers a lot of questions every time Eric tries to speak up the mountain bike racing, because it's like, are you watching real mountain bike racing or are you watching animated mountain bike racing of a certain type? Are you sure Manual in Space is a bridge too far, Eric?
I
have no answer for that. That's what I thought. All right, moving on here, Brandon. So we've got here Maddie Beniers, who clearly saw Eric's image ahead of time. Do you want to explain?
Yeah, would you?
I mean, it had the theme, right? The green background.
This is 5% more mature, folks. I swear. I did. So for the record, we each independently selected our images. We each independently, as soon as they shared theirs with mine, I'm like, I'm going to put it in this order. This is the order that I'm going to put it in. 1, this is image number 2.
So, full disclosure, this is why I was apologizing. And you can use your imagination to see whatever you choose. I am picking this card because Upper Deck, we've had a lot of talk about y'all, like with the tooth in the background and everything else. But what in the Sam hell did you do with these PMG retro things? Like, they are not good. And the audience can pick as they wish what Matty Beniers is doing there with his slumped over shoulders. It definitely does not look like he is involved in a hockey game at the moment. He might have been watching a bicyclist of sorts. And
he was there with Eric, watching cycling.
But Upper Deck, please, like, I get the idea, but the execution of some of this stuff is horrendous.
So this is a Matty Beniers green PMG.
Yeah. Now, just look at the player in question. Just the player.
That's what I'm saying. It's horrendous.
And it looks like Groot. Groot, is that his name with the minions?
I don't want to be
Groot
mean
or something. I don't know, but he looks like the guy from that those movies with the little yellow dudes, the minions.
Oh, you're talking about Despicable Me?
Yeah, that's what he looks like.
Yeah, Groot is like the tree guy.
Of?
Yeah, so yeah, but that guy's name is similar though, right? I don't remember. He's 20 now. I don't watch cartoons anymore.
He reminds me
if
of
you say so. Do we need to go back to the first image? Do we need to go back to the first image that you tell us about cartoons you don't watch? Go on. I remind you, sir, you're under oath.
We don't need to go back to that.
All right, Brandon, can I move on to the third image, please?
Yeah, I mean, really though, look, just take the card for what it is. Use your imagination of what you see, but truly removing the crazy part of the image and just looking at Beniers, he looks like a couch potato fan that is full gear coming to watch his team play. He does not look like a hockey player.
So you're saying you're not adding this to your wife's Seattle Kraken collection?
She actually thought the card was so hilariously atrocious that she wants it.
Ah, so you will be adding it to the collection, perhaps. I see.
I don't know about the green, but she thought it was funny.
So, gentlemen, like I said,
there's a great need for this, and I don't think you'll be competing for too many people to get it because that's just trash.
I'm just saying. So, like I said, this is a story in 3 images. So first we had Eric's image to start off with, and then this is what I like to call the response to the first image. So it's a story in 3 images, and then that leads us, gentlemen, to the third image, which is our friend, the not swell fella, hanging around going, "Damn, what's going on over there, guys? Can I get in on some of this?"
This is a good
allegedly.
Week.
Allegedly,
this is a good week.
All I'm saying is that we selected these images independently, but as soon as they showed me these cards, I'm like, "Oh, I'm putting this one third. It's perfect."
How does Brett Favre have so many crazy, stupid cards?
Because he was doing
first the lawnmower, and now he's in the woods with a deer behind him. with the man is Davy Crockett.
Listen, it is hunting wabbit season. The man is busy, and it doubles up as an opportunity for him to slink on in the background and be like, what in the name of Berniers is this? This man, and look at his face. This man has seen things. This man saw the first 2 cards.
He was trying to watch a bike race, and
Matty Berniers showed up, and it got real awkward. It got real awkward real fast.
Speaking of the face and the greatness, where is it? He's not up in the corner. We're not under the watchful eye. This is why it's so haywire.
Like, it's all gone off the rails, man. It's all gone off the rails. So I will include a community post with all 3 cards.
And he has a musket.
As a New Englander, you appreciate that.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
Yeah, it works out. He's got the furry hat.
Is there an autograph
he's got the deer. Not that I'm aware of. Maybe there should be.
I was gonna say you need to get one.
So all I'm saying is that all 3 of these cards will be included in a community post. Bless us all.
Yeah, God save us.
Have fun.
Yep, indeed. You got some decisions to make, people. It is the true democracy. It is up to the people. It is not up to us. All right, I've brought back the Brett Father to look over us because Brandon's right. We have strayed. We've gone far off the rails, and I can only assume that our lack of an overlay is responsible. So I have resolved this issue. Hopefully that'll save us. So now you'll know what to look forward to in the community post. There we go. All right. So unfortunately, I'd like to tell you that this level of silliness has stopped. It is not. Can we talk about Tom Brady having a YouTube channel? Brandon and I literally were on the same wavelength, but I think it's time for us to talk about Tom Brady, Eric's favorite football player, favorite athlete of all time, favorite Tom of all time. Like, it just never stops. And Eric, when I think of Tom Brady and I think of YouTube, you know what I think about? I think about this.
Oh, God.
I think about a man who could double as a crypto bro. I think he wants to sell you some Ethereum, brother.
Yeah, he did, if you remember. And the guy that he was in business with is now in prison.
But this is his YouTube channel icon now. So I think he can sell it to you again.
An idiot. He is such a dork. It is just ridiculous.
Listen, I feel like you're hating. I think this man is a man who looks like a guy who watches animated AI, mountain biking. Maybe you should hang.
No,
Be
I don't
great.
want to hang. I don't want to hang at all with him. Does is he the greatest player at his position in football history? Probably yes. Is he somebody I want to hang with outside of a football field? I do not.
So you're saying he's not a swell fellow. So
I don't
this
think
is the YouTube page for Tom Brady's YouTube channel, and the reason I wanted to share that image with you first, and then this is so that you would understand that I didn't randomly pick that. That is literally the icon image that Tom Brady, almost 50-year-old Eric, you and Tom Brady are less than. I think he's like 47.
I think he's 47.
You are less than 3 years apart, and as far as I'm aware, I think you both look basically the same without a shirt on. Like it's like looking into a mirror, no doubt.
Well, he does the Tom Brady drugs.
Maybe you should get on the Tom Brady drugs.
Maybe
the Tom Brady drugs would help you with the biking.
They're very expensive. He has a whole program you can sign up for, and
Indeed.
they're very expensive.
And I didn't even bother to make fun of. I didn't even bother to make fun of the fact that if you look at his face when he's doing his throwing up here, there's more jokes. Maybe he also saw again the AI biking.
I have tried to tell people that this guy is a dork and a weirdo, and he's done some things that I'm not impressed with outside of the football field, and he's not somebody I idolize or am interested in hanging out with.
Mm. Well, maybe you change your tune.
You all make fun of me. I
Yeah, we
have been lucky to hang out with a lot of celebrities and athletes and people of the like, and 99% of them have been absolutely fantastic and a pleasure to be around. There's a couple that I wouldn't want to meet again. I would not be interested in hanging out with this guy.
Mm. I feel like you would change your tune if you watched his most recent video where he looks at his private football collection and you have a chance to win one of his balls. Come on, Eric. This is an opportunity for you. You could literally have and be able to hold one of Tom Brady's balls.
This is 5% more mature, huh?
I am merely stating facts. I did not make that up. I did not mistakenly say something that is not accurate.
Facts are, I have already held some of the footballs that Tom Brady has used in big games, and unfortunately,
were they deflated?
I really don't know. I mean, they weren't deflated. I don't know if they had the full air in them. They seem to have. But I have already held several of Tom Brady's balls, and unfortunately, he ruined all of them because he's a douchebag.
This is awful. This is tragic. Awful. So, Brandon, this is 5% more mature because I am merely stating the facts. I'm merely reporting the news. I did not select that channel. I did not make that YouTube channel. I didn't make it up. I didn't do it.
Nope, that was the video that actually I seen when I realized that Brady had a channel. And I'm going to tell you, my thought was to share it with Eric. That's why I said it pre-recording and spoiled the surprise. Because I was like, hey, Brady ruined all of Eric's friends' balls, and he has his own private balls and could replace those balls. They may not be the same balls, but then Eric's friend could have new balls. And I was looking out for you, Eric.
I just hope that the lawsuit goes through somehow, and he has to have some consequences. But I don't know where all that stands. I haven't asked in a while.
That would be interesting.
I know lawyers. People spoke to lawyers. I don't know where things are at the moment. I believe it's something to do with the things have to. I think Golden has the stuff right now, and
probably
they have to be appraised, and then they have to go up for auction, and then if they come in less than what they were appraised at, then that's what it is in damages. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. I wouldn't quote me on any of it. That's just what I've been told, but I don't know where it all stands really. I
It's
just
gonna
know
be
that
tough
Tom
because he does have the selling point of saying Tom Brady personally ruined these. I think I think
definitely
that
did
adds
that.
value. Honestly,
And
that adds value.
don't forget that he went years being the face of a charitable organization, and come to find out he wasn't being very charitable, and he was getting paid the whole time secretly. So he's just a scumbag.
Mm. So I think we can conclude that Eric is kind of net neutral on the Tom Brady and Tom Brady,
I
YouTube
don't
channel.
care that he
He
has 6 championships here or he has 7 altogether. Yeah, he's awesome. On the field, he is an incredible quarterback.
Mm,
No doubt. Off the field, I think he's a douchebag.
mm, mm. There you go. So we're gonna shift over because that segment was again 5% more mature, and I still enjoyed it. I still enjoyed it thoroughly. The direction it went. We did also have an update on something that we had talked about previously on the live stream. We had talked about the SGC 10 Wilt Chamberlain rookie, which has actually been crossed over. I will include a link in the description to this because it is pretty interesting. And we may get Eric's buddy who was able to give us some background on this a little bit as well. But he did cross it over. It crossed over from an SGC 10 into a PSA 10. I think it goes from being a pop 1 to being, I believe, a pop 4, if memory serves me on this. However, based on obviously what we talked about previously, the SGC 10 is probably the nicest looking copy. So it's one of those things where it's a case where you've got it in the holder here. At the end of the day, the person who bought it, I think, brokered a deal where they bought it with 1.7 million. If it's 1.7 million, then you want it however you want it. I assume they have a PSA set registry. So I think for them, it was a matter of getting it into the holder so that it fit into the registry. But just think about that. At $1.7 million to buy the card, and when you're doing a crossover of this level, it's not changing holders unless it crosses over. But the fact that it was able to cross over clean, and PSA is not necessarily inclined to cross over. They reject a lot more of them than they get through. So obviously they were comfortable enough switching it over to the other holder. At the end of the day, it's for the person's own purposes. I'm guessing for, like I said, the set registry. But this card now has a little bit of an infamous background on it and a little bit of provenance going from one holder to another. But it went from a 10 to a 10.
I just don't know how anyone has the courage, and that's the only word I can come up with, courage, to take a pair of pliers or some tool of mass destruction and break one holder apart so it could then be put into another.
If you do a
Well-
crossover, the company themselves will do it, and they can use a tool that basically just takes off it's ultrasonically sealed. You can pretty much undo it, so it just comes right off.
Eric, so I've never done $1 million card, but I have cracked. In fact, the first time that I really did a bulk amount of cards to crack out, there was several that were in the 5-figure, potentially 6-figure range. Cracking cards isn't that difficult. Yes, mistakes can happen, but it's not that difficult.
I'll take your word for it. I just I'd be shaking the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
oh my
Well,
God.
the people that are doing it, remember, Collectors owns both SGC and PSA, and both companies have equipment there that can pretty much take the slab apart without really any pressure or effort. They don't have to worry about splintering or cracking. They can take it out with like it's nothing.
Okay. I have no idea what machine is used to take those apart. I'm not privy to that knowledge.
I will say I was surprised to see it.
Mhm.
Not surprised that somebody would try to get it in the PSA holder, especially for the registry purpose.
Yep.
I was surprised that PSA did it, but they accepted the crossover, because even as an SGC bulk submitter, known, no secrets there. When we discussed this before, I was surprised SGC gave it a 10. And then for PSA to accept it as a crossover and also give it the 10, that kind of surprised me, because it's very easy for these companies when you do a crossover to say no, it's and collect the money because you still have to pay if they say no. Um, so that surprised me. And then the other reason it surprised me is, I mean, what happened to PSA pop controlling? You know, this just, and it's only by one, but when you're at that level of card, and you add another one, it could potentially affect the value of the other copies,
Mhm.
because now there's another one added out there. So it did surprise me that it got the cross. Did it deserve it? You know, as it's been alluded to, this is probably the best copy. So I would say yes. But based on history and the fact that I was kind of surprised it got a 10 with SGC, um, that part shocked me. So, but congrats to the owner. I mean, especially
Mhm.
if they're a registry user.
Yep. We'll double check that. We'll make sure. That's merely a guesstimate on my part. You know, a reasonably educated guesstimate. But Eric's buddy, we had chatted on previously in the live, so maybe we'll reach out.
His name
I didn't
is
want to do
Jeff
necessarily.
Hart. Jeff
There you go,
Hart.
Jeff. Thank you for that. So we had spoken to Jeff on the live, and he was able to give us some nice insight prior. So I will reach out to Jeff. We didn't want to rush anything tonight because we're trying to be a little more truncated, but we'll reach out and maybe see if we can have an updated discussion now that we've had some more developments on this. I'll include a link in the description to the article from Sports Collectors Daily so you guys can check it out for yourself. And again, you know, at the end of the day, as long as the owner's happy with it, good. Because they pay good money for the card, so they can do what they want with it after that. And that's where it'll be
And
interesting to see
speaking
what
of
happens there.
that, and speaking of paying good money, one of the things that I have a major issue with, and I've shared it many times, is the PSA tax. I think it's utterly ridiculous. Um, Imagine what the PSA tax is for that. And I also think the PSA tax really affects grading, and it should affect our confidence in the hobby, um, of PSA, because their incentive is to give these big cards high grades to raise the tax and get more money. They're a business. It's a capitalist society, folks. They're into it for the money, not the love of the hobby, you know, not because they love cards, not they're in it for the money. And they have come up with a scam, in my opinion, that with this tax, that the better, you know, the more the card is worth and the higher grade they give it, they can just randomly give you a number and hold your card hostage. I just I think the whole thing's a scam.
So that goes in
So
direct contrast to Brandon's point about pop control. So
yeah,
Eric,
so
we can't have both at the same time. The
No,
two defeat each other.
that
You
is
can't
what
have pop
his
control
belief,
and
that is what his belief is. I have my belief that when
well,
these big things come up,
he's not the only one who believes that. Pop control is a very popular
Eric,
conspiracy on the other side.
pop
let
control is what people think because they didn't get the number they wanted on their card, and they
no
go,
no
"Oh,
no
that's
no
because
no
they
no
want pop
no
control."
no no no.
I
That's
have no
different,
vested
especially
interest
on
in that.
vintage. On modern, yes, people are going to cry that if they get a 9 and they thought it was a 10, whatever. On vintage, it's a completely different ball game. And I want to tell you, I don't know if you were on when I did the last reveal for the whole thing or whatever, but I shared it. The Cy Young that we sent in, okay, that card got up. It got upcharged. It got the SGC tax because for those that don't know, you know, anything prior to 2000, if it exceeds a certain amount, it's subject to an upcharge. It's they're not very firm on it, but I have been hit a few times. That card obviously is worth a few $1,000s,
Sure.
but it got a 4.5. I would have thought that that card would have been a 5, but it's very difficult to get a 5 on those T206 cards. My personal belief, because the LCS actually had a card that I actually own graded, and he got a 4.5 on his, and I have a 5 in an old label. I think they are grading them a little bit tougher today. That Cy Young, I believe wholeheartedly could have hit a 5, maybe 5.5. It was such a beautiful copy, and it got a 4.5. Had they just bumped it a half a grade and put it at that 5 level, and you look at how many of them are graded at a 5, that puts that a couple $1,000s more likely. And they could have charged more. So why wouldn't they have just scooted that little half a point? Especially when it was what it would have been easily accepted. I mean, the card was beautiful, and they could have collected more money. So
I guess I can't, answer that for every single individual thing. I do have the belief as a whole, though, that this is what they do, and this is what the tax is all about. Because as a collector, if I want to send something in that I've already paid for, and the service is $15 a card to get graded, it shouldn't matter what card I send in. And you grade it the same way as every other card. Give me the fairest number possible and ship it back to me. Instead, they go, well, you sent in 3 Mickey Mantle reprint cards that are all worth 25 cents a piece. So we're just going to charge you the $15, a piece on those. But then you also sent in an actual 52 Mantle. We're going to grade that completely different, have a whole different standard of grading when we look at it, and we're going to charge you $10,000. And it's like, no.
Is there a different standard?
No. Is it card centered? Is it the correct size? Is there any stains on it? Is it miscut? That's it, right? Don't give me this that we're gonna it's like it all goes back to the thing that really grinds my gears with that whole Gretzky O-Pee-Chee crap. Don't tell me that the thing can be off center and cut with a goddamn hacksaw, and you're gonna give it an 8, 9, or a 10 because, well, that's how they're made. No, you're a grading company. Your standard should be the same every single time. If the highest Gretzky O-Pee-Chee is a 5, that's still the most valuable one. Don't change. Don't move the goalposts, as they say, right?
You're missing one element, though, Eric. So you're looking at it as the tax on they're grading so they can charge you more.
That's what I believe. Yeah.
So
Then they would do
case,
every crossover every single time. They would cross over 100%.
Well, yeah. Or to take it further, like you were saying, okay, if you grade all of the Gretzky's 5s, then the 5 is the highest one out there. I think it's more to dictate market value because they do have a say in it. And that's where people look at the pop control thing. Okay, that's why that Wilt surprised me a little bit that they crossed it over. I didn't think that it was going to. I was surprised they got a 10 in SGC. I admitted that right from the get-go. So to see that it got crossed and that they actually accepted the cross surprised me. And it's only one card, but when you're at that level of card, adding one more card now puts another one out there that could become available. And that's the thing. There's only 2 O-Pee-Chee Gretzky's. There's only, I don't know the exact number, but there's only the Ricky Henderson rookie is very tough. Like there's
the rookie one is very tough in a 10. And that's one that a lot of people think that has been pop controlled for decades.
Yes. Because there's so many 9s over and over and over. It can get 9s, but there's no 10s being popped.
And by Eric's logic, if they were doing it to maximize PSA's revenue,
would be way more 10s.
They should be handing out 10s like they're candy.
But
the other way around.
Couldn't they do both? I hear a lot of people say now, can't both arguments be true? Can't there be 2 truths? Can't they say, we're gonna make 7s, 9s? But if we push it too far, people will be onto us, and we can still tax the hell out of them and get an upcharge them at a 9 and control the pop. And
I don't think the 9's valuable enough.
There is nothing
the jump
willing
The
to
jump right
convince
now
you.
is so massive. The jump right now is so massive between the 9 and the 10 on that card. It's skewed too far. If you wanted to do it, look, if I'm running a conspiracy for it, Eric, then the Henderson screws up the conspiracy because it's too obvious. It's too one-sided. And the other argument for it, if you put too many 10s out there, then you don't get the bump. But if you put no 10s out there and they're basically impossible, then you still don't get any of the money because you're not handing out any 10s. The 9s are worth way less because the 10 is so much harder to get. So the 9 does not make you the money. You make the money if you get a 10 and you're not giving out 10s. So you're not making the money. And that's your problem.
I just think that these companies started this whole tax thing to make more money. It doesn't
The
make
business
sense.
was started to make more money.
Yes, that's my whole point. I said that. It doesn't make sense to have this, in their holster and not use it. So they're using
But
it.
you realize I'm pretty certain, and I might be incorrect on this, but I'm pretty certain the only company out of the main 4 that doesn't have an upcharge, and they might, and I had never, it's the one company I've never used. But if memory serves me correct, the only company that doesn't have in that scale would be Beckett.
Maybe they finally did something right then, because I don't think any consumer thinks that this upcharge tax thing is right or fair.
And I could be wrong. They might have it. I just haven't paid enough attention.
I'm taking a look right now just to see. It looks like the
But
different prices are based on the speed of the return.
Right, and not necessarily the value, unless the value is dictated in like the level of service speed. But CGC, they upcharge, like their prices are based
Yeah,
upon
they've got
value.
tiers. Yeah, they've got tiers.
Yeah. And SGC, they don't upcharge on anything post 2000. And we've sent in thousands upon thousands of cards, and there's been few that we have been upcharged on. But it does happen. So
I just think
they all do it.
I think it's wrong. I think if I went to buy tires for my 2008 Jeep Grand Cherokee and paid to have them put on, and paid for the tires and had them put on, and then I brought in a 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee, and they told me, well, these tires are more expensive. Why? Well, because this car is nicer.
Well, you do know that there's different sets of tires that cost different prices.
Yeah, I was gonna, but also your analogy's bad. Your analogy's bad. Hold on, your analogy's bad. In your scenario 1, you're bringing your Jeep Grand Cherokee. In scenario 2, you're bringing your Lamborghini. I'm sorry, those are the fancy Lamborghini tires. You're paying extra for those. They're not the same tires.
I also want to just disclose, the person that submitted the Cy Young and had to pay the upcharge, he was perfectly fine with it because he knew and expected that it was likely going to happen if it got the grade that he was hoping to get. So he was okay with it.
Is he selling it?
He's a card shop owner, yes.
Okay, that's why.
Yeah, but Eric, look, so 2 things. I want to talk. I don't mind having this conversation. Hold on. I don't mind having this conversation because it's actually a good topic, and I'll actually bring in something that'll help with this. But I just want to make clear, I've heard this type of argument before, and I understand it. But I'm also going to reiterate something that I hear when Scott makes a similar pitch and other folks make a similar pitch. And obviously Scott's I hear all the time as well. But I'm going to be like, the price sheet is there in front of you when you submit. They are not hiding it from you. They're not randomly coming up with it after the fact. It's literally, if it crosses this threshold, it's literally there on the sheet.
Right.
Go to the expo. The next time we go to the expo, I'll show anybody the sheet that they want to see it. It's right there with the different levels and everything. The moment and at that point, I don't care if you think the price is right. Because the second you submit the card, you are agreeing to these terms. You have agreed. So that's the thing for the consumer. And one thing about the grading as well, Brandon, since you brought it up, actually, I had this in my back pocket because I thought it would be worthwhile bringing up, but you guys gave me the perfect segue for this one. And I'll include a link in the description to this for you guys. Because in the past, I've talked about how coin grading predates card grading by decades. They were literally dealing with all this and having this entire discussion 20 years ago. So congratulations on discussing something that was being discussed in coins in 1991. PSA had just started and they were already decades into this. This video here, again, I understand it's coin collecting and not everybody cares about it, but I do think, even if you don't want to watch the video, I would go to the description, because they've got a description here of what's called technical grading versus market grading. Okay? I'm going to read it to you, but I want you to listen to what the description is, because they actually wrote it out here, so I'm glad they did. I'll give you this quick, short version. But I think this is worthwhile because this comes up in the discussion we just had. Technical grading focuses on the objective assessment of a coin's condition based on physical attributes: wear, scratches, dents, luster, and overall presentation. It follows a standardized grading scale or similar scales used in other countries. So it's got a standardized, it is an objective measure. It's the accurate and consistent evaluation of the coin's condition regardless of rarity or market demand. That is technical grading. Market grading takes into account not only the technical aspects of the coin's condition, but it's also perceived desirability and market demand. It considers factors such as rarity, historical significance, popularity amongst collectors, and current market trends. Let me translate this into cards, though, for a second. And this will actually help. Let me translate it over into cards for a moment. And I do recommend the video if you are curious, because the guy in there it's a seminar. The guy actually does a good job just explaining and describing it. Technical grading is you look at it and you say, it's got a scratch here, it's got a corner here, it's got this. You add up all the pieces and you say, this would be a PSA 3. So you add up all the components and you spit it out on the other end, you say this is a PSA 3. Market grading is closer to what in cards we would call eye appeal. So you're taking into account a lot of different things, but you're also saying that for this series, in this issue, to find it in this centering, the technical grade is a 3. But when you go to the marketplace and you show me a crisp image, good registration, nice centering, it can have the damage that would normally be consistent with a 3, but it's going to sell for 5 money. So it doesn't matter that it's a 3, it'll actually sell like a 5.
And to Eric's point earlier, when he talked about the standard and like there should be one standard and everything, I think I kind of mentioned this in the Discord, but I am starting to wonder or question if we, and God damn, I even say this.
Ooh.
But are we approaching a point to where there does need to be like separating the vintage from the modern?
BVG, BVG, BVG.
That's why
BVG.
I said, damn that I say this, but I do feel that the vintage is being graded or at least looked at differently than the way modern is, because you look at those T206s, all right, they're from 1909 to 1910, and some of them got a 5. Now they have rounded corners and they're off centered a bit, whatever. But you then look at a 2024 Prism that has a slight little wrinkle in the film and it's getting a 6. Like they're close together there. There might not be another damn thing wrong with the card, but that's like an immediate 6. Whereas this vintage card has rounded corners and you can tell it's not even close to being pack fresh, but they're similar in range. And that's because when the graders are looking at that, they're taking into account what you were just talking about, that eye appeal. Like they know that for a T206, that is a beautiful copy. And so it's getting a little bit of a little bump to it. And when they're writing the scales aren't across all the cards. Like Peter has said in videos that they take registration and all of that into account on vintage. And that's not really a thing much on the modern stuff. So I am to this point of wondering, do we need something that kind of like a point, maybe 1970, 1980, something where it's kind of separated so people know more, like this is graded this way, these numeric grading are this way, and these are this way. Because technology changed, the Chrome came into play, all this other stuff. And I do feel, sadly, to admit this, that the cards do get looked at in different ways.
My instinct is to say no, and simply, like I kind of mentioned some things earlier. Is things centered? Well, first of all, one of my other biggest complaints about grading and PSA specifically is somehow 60-40 is perfect. No, 50-50 is perfect.
Okay,
But
nobody said it was perfect.
Nobody does 50-50.
Even the standard doesn't say perfect.
No.
The word perfect is nowhere there.
If you have a scale, doesn't matter if the scale is 1 to 1,000,000, 1 to 1,000, 1 to 100, or 1 to 10. 10 is going to be the best, right? So
It's the highest number they gave,
yeah,
but not perfect. Nobody said that.
I understand your point.
Yeah, it's also not in their grading. In their standard, it's also not written. The word perfect is not anywhere in there.
But that is what it should be. It should be as close to perfect. That's what you're shooting for. And there's nothing wrong with having the standard of 50-50, that the thing was printed correctly. Right? So you look at every single card. Is it the correct size? Was it cut? You know, because you go back to the PSA's first card, that thing was chopped to bits with a paper cutter, and yet that somehow got a good grade. So is it the right size? Is it stained? Is it, cut cleanly? What do the corners and edges look like? The standard can be the same, but yeah, you're not going to get a 10 from a card that's 100 years old. It has been through the ringer, and they didn't have collecting, and they didn't have hard plastics and 9 pocket pages and binders and that everything that we do now. And it's okay if a 5 is the best you will get for a card that's 100 years old. That's fine. I think the standard should be the same every single thing they look at, and they don't do that now.
My point is, though, a 5 there, and then you look at a card that in ultra modern right out of the pack that's getting a 6.
Yeah, because
they're on way different levels of what they look like. Like this 5 is nice for a vintage. This looks really, really good, but it has a little tiny wrinkle because of the film on the chrome or whatever got wrinkled. Like they're on different extremes of look.
And right. And now you have, this is where the human factor comes in, which I've always complained about, and why I want AI and I want tag to succeed. Or the thought.
But they're not doing vintage.
I want it to, the idea to move forward and be successful. That's my hope. Is now it's an opinion. It's like eye appeal is an opinion. The size of the card is a fact. Rounded edges are a fact. 90-degree edges are a fact. Centering 50-50, 60-40 is a fact.
So let me pause 1 second. Rounded corners is not a fact, because there's degrees of roundedness. There is varied opinions. So really important thing. So I have had my fun, clearly, making fun of our AI tag overlords for many a times. It is one of the greatest joys of my existence. However, I'm going to repeat what I said previously. Even if their system, which I don't believe works for 1 second, let me be clear, I don't think any of it works. I think it's bullshit. However, let's pretend for the sake of argument it worked perfectly. Let's pretend it worked exactly the way they designed it. It's still bullshit and it still doesn't work. Why? Because you had to program it in there, and you still have an opinion. All you did was program somebody's opinion into it. You took somebody's opinion and automated it, and the machine still has to try to interpret, because when it's looking at a corner that's been rounded, so we'll use vintage, because in vintage you have all these different levels. A modern card should have sharp edges. Sharp. Perfectly sharp. It should have perfect registration. It should have all those things. On a vintage card, the reason the eye appeal thing is so important is because to the actual collector, the eye appeal thing is the thing that matters. Because they can look at a 5 and a 5. So remember what Eric was talking about earlier. That's why I gave you guys the difference between a technical grade and what they call a market grade. But I translated into sports cards where we talk about eye appeal, because in the real collector world, eye appeal matters a lot. I can give you 2 cards that are both technical grade 5. By the technical grade, they are identical. They are supposed to be the same. But eye appeal wise, they're 2 completely different things. One will sell for double the other one. But they're both supposed to be 5s. So how am I supposed to, then when I'm trying to figure out comps, oh, but that 5 sold for 1,000. Well, that other 5 sold for 500. How the hell does that work? They're both 5s. And you go examine them. They're both technically 5s, but one has better eye appeal and sells for double.
Because they're using grading for what it was intended to do, and that's to give a third person's opinion. But then they're also using their own opinion to actually examine and identify the quality of the piece and base a price off of it. Whereas in cards, it's too heavily dependent on the company and the graded opinion. That's the final word, the final say, the comps and all this other shit, and people ignore what's actually inside the plastic because they don't understand. Eric said it earlier, and it is what it is. Yes, there are standards, there are guides, there are things and rules and all that they should be going by. But we all 3 could look. We all have different eyes. We're all 3 wearing glasses. We all might need different magnifications. We all 3 could look at the damn card differently and have different, especially on vintage. We all 3 could have a different opinion on it, of the eye appeal or whatever, because we are individuals and it is still an opinion process to it. So they're using both aspects. They're taking the technical and allowing them to place the technical grade, but then they're also using a market or eye appeal and their own personal opinion of it to come to a conclusion.
Yeah. And then when you take it and try to automate it, try to add it into the programming, here's where you run into a problem. And by the way, this is from their own acknowledgement of how the technology, quote unquote, works. I take a scratch on the surface. Scratch on the surface is a defect. A defect should knock the condition down. Everybody agrees on this. We're all on the same page. A scratch that's over on this edge near where the border is, in theory, is less punishing than one directly across the player's face. Why? Because eye appeal. Not because of technical grade, because by technical grade, a scratch is a scratch is a scratch. If the scratch is the same severity over here than it is right here, by technical grade standards, it should be identical. There should be 0 difference. Tag's own admission is that a scratch over the face would actually punish the card more. So in the system, they're adding eye appeal. They're trying to add an eye appeal metric in there. It's in there. So if you don't agree with the eye appeal thing, then already your system's flawed.
I don't. I think that a 5 is a 5 is a 5.
So the robots have failed you, Eric. They failed us all.
Now, when I go to that dealer and they have 2 of the exact same cards, one has a scratch in the corner, one has a scratch on the face, and I offer them money, and he tells me that they're both, $100. I go, nah, I like this one better. I'll pay you $100 for this one, but that one I'm only going to pay you $75. He can take it or leave it. I don't have to give him $100 for it. What is it worth to me? That's my wallet, my eyes, my opinion.
And that's what people do.
Right.
That's what happens now, yeah.
I don't want grading company to do it.
The grading company isn't doing it. The grading company is giving you a number on there, and you choose how much you want to pay for it.
No,
it could be a 10 and you offer $5. That's your prerogative.
The
That's your
grading company is using their eye appeal opinion to grade stuff. They're not just saying a scratch in the corner and the scratch on the face is the same. They're going, well,
you just said that you wanted Tag to succeed because they were going to make things better, and he just explained to you that's what Tag is doing.
They're following the same.
It's just a human.
They just automated the same eye appeal thing that you were complaining about 5 seconds ago.
Yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want to be. I'm saying that the companies that, the top 4 aren't doing that. They're
beyond the top 4 are also not doing that.
The scratches
even the automated ones aren't doing that.
I'll make that decision. Yeah, I don't need PSA to make it for me.
Great, but I'm saying Tag is also making the decision for you. They literally already told us. That is a thing they're doing. It penalizes you more.
Just keep in mind, I didn't promote tag. I said the idea of tag. The idea of this AI, every card is graded the same, is measured differently, and and the numbers
I
are going
think
to be more routine. That's what I would like to see in the future.
I think the problem with that theory, though, Eric, is whomever is programming the machine, or tag, or any other company that wants to use that type of grading, they would have to be programming it to what you feel the standards are for you to technically be getting a card in the sense that you feel is done correctly. I mean, that's all it is to it, because if they're doing it by Joe Bob's standard or Joe Bob's theory of what the card grading should be, then you have to be accepted of Joe Bob. It's not what Eric wants. It's what Joe Bob wants. So you're still
Agreed.
going off of an opinion
Okay,
of a
agreed.
person
Ag-
and not
agreed.
a standard.
But every single card that's done by the computer that Joe Bob programmed is going to be 100% the same.
But it doesn't
Yeah.
mean
Well,
that
they
it's
already
right.
said it's not 100% the same.
Well, okay. See, I'm talking about what I hope will happen in the future. You're sticking with tag the company right now. We all
Eric,
agree
my
that's
point. So maybe I'll explain it this way. Let me explain it a different way. They have the option to try to do what you said that you would like to see happen. They've made an intentional decision not to do that. Why did they choose to do that? Because the market and the collectors that they talked about do not want what you want. They said explicitly they want to scratch over the face. I'm using this specific example, but they want the scratch over the face to penalize the card more than the scratch over in the corner. That is what the people they have spoken to want. So they're programming that into their program.
Yeah.
And everybody else is doing the exact same thing today.
This whole discussion is about opinions, and I'm just talking about my opinion, my wish, what I would want, what I'm willing to pay for, what I hope will happen before I'm out of collecting or dead.
Here's a
and-
serious question, and we can like put a button on the conversation on this, because I don't even know how we got here. This was unplanned. Everybody, there you go. This was
You're welcome.
unplanned. But serious question. Has the purpose of grading and the amount of cards graded pushed it to levels to where it has almost become irrelevant based on what its intentions were meant for? Because
Question to your question. What do you think the purpose of grading was?
to have a third party's opinion to help, the whole idea was to create a third party to give an opinion to help in negotiating deals, or mediate the condition of a card when it came between dealer and buyer.
Sort of, yeah. So to a degree. So just taking us all the way back to day
For
one.
me, it was authentication. Is the card real?
Well, authentication was, so that's the point I was going to get at. So again, going back all the way to coin and ye old decades again before. The purpose initially was authentication above all else. That was the number one. The number one concern
Right.
was, is it real or is it fake? Because good money's getting exchanging hands, and we need some level of security. That was number one.
But
And
there is a
go ahead.
separation in authentication and grading, though. Condition.
I get you, but I'm starting at the beginning. First, I'm starting on day one, ground zero. The whole grading company thing initially.
Is this expensive
was-
Mickey Mantle card real? That was
Yeah.
the big thing.
Yeah. And then for coins, it was the same thing. Is this item that I'm paying good money for, is it the real deal, or has it been altered, or something has happened? Has something occurred that makes it inauthentic? That was the first. Then when you start introducing the grading into it, initially it was a minimal scale, being that you just wanted to get range. Basically, you were shooting to understand, like, is this a high-end copy? Is this a mid-end copy or a low-end copy? Yeah, very much so. By the time we get the cards, we do have the numbers in there early on, because by that point already grading, third-party authentication, had already been going on for a while. So you want to come in the marketplace and you want to make a splash, you're already going to have a number on there. But the original scale was very loose because, again, you got to remember, pre-grading, the dealer would tell you everything was near mint, even if the card was torn in half.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter what it was. It was, it's a near mint card. What does that mean to you? Well, like, what do you? The card is literally torn in half. It's being taped together right now. There's tape. Like, it's not near mint. It's like, well, why do you know what near mint is? And that was basically the argument back and forth. And when they initially came out, when PSA came out with it, they invented gem mint. Gem mint's not a thing. So gem mint can be whatever they want it to be because it's not even real. Mint was supposed to be the top end. That was supposed to be perfect. Well, even Beckett adjusted over time so that mint wasn't perfect either. Because again, they also had their own grading companies, so mint is also not perfect for Beckett. Mint is not perfect for SGC. Mint is not perfect. So here's the question. We want to blame PSA, but SGC had their chance. Mint wasn't perfect for them. Mint's not perfect for Beckett. Mint's not perfect for CGC. Mint's not even perfect for Tag. Everyone agrees that mint is not perfect. Gem mint
isn't even perfect for
correct.
3 of them.
It's not perfect for any of them. It's not perfect for any of them. They've all got a higher level.
Ridiculous.
Well, PSA doesn't have a higher than Gem Mint.
Well, agreed. But they left room within it. And then the other ones who did create a higher level, it's higher than base Gem Mint for them too.
So ridiculous. I just get more and more aggravated the more we talk because it's just such a scam.
Well, my point was to my question is it's gotten so convoluted and it's so, I mean, we don't even know the tenure, the length of tenure of some of these graders anymore. I mean, they could be in and out the doors. Who knows, right? We hope for consistency. That's what we hope for. We hope for standards. But we see so much shit, and it goes, I'm not just pointing fingers at PSA here. I'm talking grading in general.
Me too.
It's become where everyone, instead of allowing the slab and the grade to help guide us, so many people are just hell-bent on it being the thing. It is the only thing that matters. Half the time, I don't even know if people know what the hell that they're buying inside of the piece of plastic. It just has a 10 on it, so it's got to be whatever the last comp is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's my point. Has it gotten so far outside of its intended realm that it's almost become irrelevant? And the reason I say that is, although people bitch and complain when they don't get the 10 and they get the 9, they're likely going to crack it out and send it back because that's what it's become, right? Let's hope for the 10 on the next go around. Let's spin the wheel, right? See what we get.
Which again proves that what a scam this is. Because
that's not where I'm going.
You're hearing scam. I'm hearing sound business model. I'm hearing sound business model. My point is
this: we need to take some responsibility on ourselves. We have to start being responsible ourselves. Yes, these companies can provide us with a through 10 scale, but you need to start. You need to start going backwards and using the tools for what they were intended for. Start making your own damn decisions on these cards, not just what company XYZ LMNOP tells you that these cards are. That is my point of this. They are there to provide a service, but we as the hobbyists need to start making the damn decisions more for ourselves than just relying wholeheartedly on what they say.
Or we could do as we're told. Because so I Brandon's point I think is completely fair. I just so we're all on the same page. I agree with a lot of what he's saying. However, in the course of our discussions, both here and in the live, remember when I said don't apply logic to the hobby rule, the infamous rule number 8 that was created very recently. So what he is saying is entirely and completely logical, which is why it is against everything the hobby stands for. Completely against. It's heresy is what it is. It's heresy. But part of the reason why I say so is, so again, just being serious here, we'll be 5% more mature, so here we go. The reason why I say it falls under that heresy thing for the hobby at this point is that we could say the same thing about comps. Comps are merely a guide to help us. In theory, comps could provide a good anchor to assist us in evaluating. Again, if the card sells for $100, that does not mean that I have to pay $100. As a buyer, I'm probably going to want, can I get it for 80? Can I get it for 75? I'm going to try. And as the dealer, does that mean I necessarily want to sell it for 100? No, I want 150. I want 160. That doesn't mean they're going to get what they want. It doesn't mean that I'm going to get what I want, but we're sure as hell going to try. But it gives us an anchor point though. It gives us a place to start, where as opposed to, imagine you have nothing there and you say, I want $1,000, and the buyer is like, I want to pay $5,000. Well, the gap is too big. It's like, we're basing it on nothing. So it's in there like, how do we know $1,000 is too much? How do we know $5 is too little? What are we basing that off of? And that's where I say, like, when I listen sometimes, they'll be like, people complain about comps. And it's like, well, guys, comps is just the hobby's version of comp is a real estate term. Comparable. So again, if you see this house, oh, it's a really nice house. It should be a $10 million house. Based on what?
Yeah,
In that neighborhood, what are we basing this on? Like, otherwise we're guessing.
People forget Beckett was literally called a price guide. Like,
yeah,
it was in its name.
You know, it's just to give us something, and even with the grading thing, it's what a 5 is. Okay, I don't agree that it's a 5. Well, then maybe I should offer less than what a 5 normally goes for. I still have that option. It's still available to me. Like, I can still use it as an anchor point. The dealer can be like, oh, it's undergraded for a 5. I actually think it's nicer than the normal 5. So they'll try to price it a little higher. The other person will go, actually, I think it's overgraded for a 5. So I'm going to offer less. But it gave us both a starting point. The card shows of the 1970s and the 1980s was, it's near mint. No, it's torn in half. It's a poor condition card. We had the same problem. We couldn't even agree on the grade. So if we can't even agree on the grade, how are we going to agree on the price that we're going to offer for the card? So at least it takes one of the two things out. And even if we don't agree, we can be like, well, how far overgraded? How far undergraded? It gives us a starting point to then have the argument that we're still going to have, because we're not agreeing, right? We all agree it's wrong. But okay, which side of the argument are you going to sit on? And that's how you will figure out transactions. The other part is transactions online. When you're paying good money for one of these things, a lot of people will be like, I can't buy a raw card online. Why? Because unless this image is like 50,000, pixels, the biggest image in the world blown up so that I can't hold it in hand. So I've got nothing. So I'm trying to figure out what the grade should be, what I think it should be, based on some crummy eBay pictures. Well, that's not going to make me super comfortable not to spend good money on it. So again, it serves a purpose. It might not, it's not going to be perfect, but it's better than me trying to go blind here and then dealing with a bunch of nonsense with no anchor to start off with. Does that make sense, Brandon? Like, you get what I'm trying to say here?
It does. My point really was, people are so far dependent on the slab now, though. It's sad because everybody, I don't want to say everybody. Let me refrain. A ton of the hobby is 10 or nothing, right? If it's not a 10, it's not nothing. And it's because they can't see beyond that scale of 10. They can't see what, as you mentioned earlier, mint is supposed to be good, the good copy, right?
Yeah.
But in many cases, mint is worth less than raw because, well, the raw has the chance at the 10. And so instead of actually looking at the card, because let's be honest, a lot of times 10s look like shit. There's 9s out there that look better than 10s. Whether or not they were improperly graded or the 10, there's a flaw in the 9 we can't see, whatever. But people a lot of times just push that to the side. It's all about what's on that flip on that label, and they disregard every other aspect of it. And I think that's where it becomes a problem.
Sure. But I think what you're talking about, what it comes down to, is that most of the folks that are participating in the hobby, I'll say hobby participants, because that covers everybody. That covers, buyers, dealers, flippers. It covers everyone. Just say participants. Most hobby participants want to abdicate responsibility to somebody else. They want to give somebody else. Yeah. So it's a choice.
Easy button.
Yeah. It is a choice. So that the reason why it doesn't offend me is, number one, I enjoy anarchy. So it's a lot of fun for me. I'm going to be, fully in the spirit of transparency, Brendan, as a man of schadenfreude, in addition to being a man of peace, this plays right in my sensibilities. I'm enjoying myself thoroughly. But at the same time, that's the reason why the comps thing comes up all the time. That's the reason why the grading thing comes up all the time. And when I'm listening to these folks, I go, you're complaining about something you're not required to do. No one's putting a gun to your head saying, yeah. The reason a lot of people do it, though, is because they abdicate they would rather hand over the responsibility to somebody else. So if it's done wrong, they got somebody to point and blame. They can be like, oh, they screwed it up. It wasn't me not looking at it. You can just point over there.
Let's be honest too. And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole right now, but it has been a topic of sorts. Another reason grading is so popular is because it's 100% wholeheartedly an added element to the casino. The people send the cards in, and if it was really 100% confidence in the standards, and veteran people that have been grading and they know the standards, they know how to inspect their cards, if it was truly to that scale, people would not be so worried about when those grades pop, rushing to see what their cards got. It is literally another element to the casino, sending them in and hoping that you get that rush of getting that 10.
Yeah, it's manufacturing something out of nothing. But remember the conversation we had last week where I said I like the gambling aspect of the hobby portion of it because honestly it keeps things more interesting. Because look, if it was just straight up, and let's say we were able to grade properly, that would actually take some more people out of it because realistically, like the possibility of maybe we'll put it this way, and we can actually put it in reseller terms. Here's a good one for you. Imagine if the market was really efficient. Part of business model of being a reseller is being able to build your knowledge base so that you understand what possible things are out there, or you develop a sense. Even if you don't know exactly what this is, you can develop a sixth sense and say, actually, that feels like it's undervalued. Yeah, you can kind of build up a radar for that. Well, imagine if everywhere you went, everybody priced everything correctly. Then what the hell are you doing? Like, imagine if they all knew, like, yeah, that's actually a $300 thing. Oh, I've got a price for $295.
I wouldn't be in.
Like, that's worthless. You're out of business.
I wouldn't have a pile of shit here to ship.
Yeah, the gap between what can happen and what the knowledge may allow you to find, that's the gap. With the grading thing, taking a raw card which is worth X, if it gets that one number bump and suddenly is worth 5 times as much, that gap, to your point, the gambling aspect of it is you can take $100 and make it $500 like that. That's how quick it can happen. Or, it can be a bigger multiplier in some cases. That allows that to happen. So that the company itself, PSA has been around the longest, but the first decade and a half, business was not brisk. Business was slow. They did what they needed to do, but for the most part, they were just used here and there by some folks. It's where that opportunity becomes available. So now they get submissions at scale. It's not folks sending 1 or 2 cards in at a time that's making 1 million cards a month. It's dealers sending in 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 cards at a time in volume and in bulk and making their money from that. That's how that business works. And it's people sending in a couple of 100 cards at a time and trying to 5, 10x some of the values they're getting out of it. Everybody in that ecosystem
on YouTube that have prisms that they don't do very well. Oh wait, that was what, 2020, 2021?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Remember that video? That was kind of
yeah, it happens. So the bottom line though is that all it is, that's why I say a lot of times, I think a lot of those folks spend a lot of time looking at the company and trying to blame them for the inputs they're getting. It's like, well, guys, it's a reflection on what you, the general market, is trying to do. They only exist as long as you want to play, even if it's gambling. Okay, but you're the one who went to the casino and put down the money and said, I would like to gamble. Again, that's a decision. So to your point from earlier, I think a lot of folks want to absolve themselves of the responsibility and put it all on somebody else. If it doesn't work out the way they want it, it's because, the system was rigged against me, this, that. It's like, well, did you actually look at the card? There's a lot of reveals that I'll look at and I'm like, oh, I don't understand how they came to this. Well, because there's a scratch there, there's a dent there, and there's a thing there. Did you even look at it? You just sent it in thinking like, oh, this is perfect. Like, based on what? Did you actually look at it?
There was a conversation in Discord about how many cards someone sends, because apparently they believe that if you send over a certain amount, you're going to get more 9s and 10s because you sent too many cards. Like, they're grading over 1 million. Do you think because you sent 28 instead of 23 that's why? Like, these theories that pop up out there sometimes are hilarious.
Yeah. But I think it all comes down to that responsibility thing. I think a lot of folks want these things to operate in a way they were never intended to. And then even when someone explains that, actually, the purpose of this, the purpose of the price guide is to give you a guide, is to give you an anchor point, and then you and the dealer can argue about it till you're blue in the face, and maybe in the end you come up with some number in the middle, whatever it is.
Do you feel guilty? And I know Eric, I don't know that you sell much at all. I don't know if you sell it all at the shop. I know you deal with eBay some though. Carlos, I know you sell some. Here's another
Mhm.
thing though with the comp situation.
Uh-huh.
Do you feel guilty if you like say you're not into you're into something way less than what it's going for today and you just want to move it and so you undercut everybody and you
Mhm.
set a low comp? Do you feel guilty of that knowing that the next person that goes to sell that some asshole is going to be like, hey, but the last comp was, it's like that's always cracked me up because you know it's going to happen. You
That
know
is a superb
somebody
question.
I got the money I wanted. Why do I feel guilty
right.
about that nonsense?
I like Eric, I feel in a similar vein, but I feel it's more captured like this.
Yeah,
I was just curious because I know some people would say that that feeling makes us an asshole, but I
Well,
feel like, especially in a
let,
saturated market,
let me
take
do
your
it once
money.
here. Let me do it once here because we'll start winding down. We'll keep it a little more streamlined, but let me do it once here. To be fair,
to be fair.
thank you. I am an asshole. I lead with that,
Then
just
self-credited
I lead
one,
with it.
so
Yeah, I lead with it. Like I begin like I'm gonna add it to my business card, maybe just to help, just to assist with that, just so everyone's on the same page. I don't want to mislead anyone
I'll
on this
sell
matter.
that for $1 if I want to. It's mine. I'll do what I want.
Yeah. Now, one thing I'll say is that there is some strategery because there may be a time where some item maybe undercutting it will sell it a little quicker, but if I've got other copies, I may want to think about how I want to play that angle a little bit. On
mhm.
ComC, there's a very standard strategy where if I load up some stuff, I look at what they're selling for. If I think I can move it in a price point that makes sense to me, I may undercut a little bit just to be able to get mine sold first. But if I think the original price is fair to begin with, I'll stay close. It's one of those things where I'm not going to try to completely break the marketplace on it. Most of the time, though, I'll usually do a little digging and try to figure out what the price point that would be appropriate is. But sometimes some people are so far out of whack, they're so high, they're so wrong that
Right.
by comparison, I'm offering a bargain, but really I'm offering probably the going market rate, probably the proper rate. And I'm actually getting a fair price for it, in which case I'm not breaking any comps. This is the proper number. You guys are just completely out to lunch. You're on your own.
Yeah. And that's a perfect point there. It does depend on market saturation of the item,
Yes.
and if there's recent consistent sales at a particular price, then you can sell it at that price. Relatively simple. Um, it's when things become, I guess, where there's not a consistent sales data, and you may, like you said, you may see a few copies that are priced where people are gonna have some hopes and dreams, and you swoop in and put a more realistic number to move yours. And then those people, they're going to think you're an asshole because you just took away the potential of their hopes and dreams, because the next person is going to be like, hey, Carlos just sold it for this and I want it for this. And so it's those situations that always crack me up, because people do just, they sometimes they have no comprehension of like reality, and
Yeah.
sometimes you just want to move something. So
Yeah.
Do what
And
I want.
maybe this will yeah, and maybe this would be a good way to kind of end this conversation and also give us some food for thought, maybe for future conversation. I think one of the things that makes this market so tricky for some people to grasp get their heads around is that they forget. Again, the reason why rule number 8 is so much fun for me and also so accurate is that you're trying to apply logic. Well, one of the pieces of logic may be that people are applying incorrectly. There is a logic, but it's not strong enough to fit every situation. But we're self-interested actors. What I mean by that is you're trying to apply an overall logic when there's a bunch of folks inside who each are self-interested. I'm trying to take care of my business, you're trying to take care of your business, and we're all operating in the same space. We don't have the same agenda at the same time. This isn't like us getting together and be like, hey guys, we should all make sure that it sells for this. That way we all potentially can sell. It's more like, hey, I'm into it for this. I want to get my money out of it so that I can go do this other thing. And you're over there, can play the long game so you can wait longer. And then maybe Eric is in the middle. So we're all operating on different timelines with different profit margins and different. So our response, the exact same situation, is three completely different things. Looking at it from the outside, I go, how does that make any sense? Well, actually, it makes perfect sense if you're in Eric's chair, or if you're in my chair, or if you're in your chair, because we're looking at our situation and saying, I need to get out of it for this because I already bought a lot. I have almost nothing into it. I can sell it for this price because I'm making triple, and then I'm selling the rest of the slot, and that's how I make my money. Brandon is like, yeah, I paid a little bit more for it, but I can afford to sit on it for a while because I'm making money in these other things. So you know what? I'm going to leave it at this price. I'm just going to leave it because I'm good to wait. Eric is somewhere in the middle. He goes, I don't have too much into it, but I would really like to sell it in the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to price it in the middle.
Yeah, it's the theory in reselling is the quick nickel versus the slow dime. It's kind of the good way to phrase it. And I see it more over there, but those markets are less quirky than cards, I guess.
But the principle doesn't change. Like, I think people assume that everybody involved in buying and selling is trying to do the exact same thing. They're not. There's sellers that have different timelines and agendas and profit margin. There's buyers that are like, oh, this is PC for life. I'm going to buy it, and then I'm throwing it in the vault for the next 40 years, and you're not going to see it again. There's somebody else who are like, oh, it's a shiny toy. Hold on, let me get it. Okay, now I'm bored with it. Now back onto the market it goes. And then there's other folks that are in between. So because of that, you got different types of buyers, and that can mess up your comps. That can mess up your results. Then you've got different kinds of sellers that messes up your results. You go to the card show, you get one result, you get this other thing. It's like, well, how does that all, that is all part of that marketplace. So every time you're trying to figure it out with one overarching theory, the reason why none of the theories work is because they forget there's all these moving parts. And you don't know what everybody's thinking. You don't know what their plan is, what the timeline is, and you're trying to guess. Well, good luck. There's a million moving parts. You can't account for all these variables. Good luck with that. That's the reason why the whole rule number 8 came into play. It's like, yeah, you're trying to apply logic to this hobby, dude. It's impossible. It's art as much as it is science. Like, there's too many things that you got to try to gauge the vibe in the room at the same time that you're watching all these moving parts.
So I guess a great way to close out tonight's conversation would be, Eric, are you going to get Robot Bicycle Girl in a BGS graded slab?
I may have.
That would be like the perfect combination.
That would be
diagram.
That would be the.
Send it to you. I might have to send it to you to get it.
Oh no, you got to get it done in BGS.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Maybe
BCCCG. They don't do it anymore,
Ooh.
But if they had it,
all right.
I tell you what, if you want one,
if
you want one graded, send it to me and I'll get it done for you.
If BCCCCCCCCG still existed, I think I would for the gag. Yeah.
What if they take it into eye appeal though? Would you say that card has some eye appeal to it?
Well, in fairness, Beckett Collector Club grading, which is the original thing, their 10 was mint or better. Mint or better, which leaves a lot of room. Leaves a lot of room.
A more accurate scale.
That's because Beckett is a complete trash company. That's why.
Oh man. Flat bills are not your thing, are they?
You're just not used
to mine either. I have no room to talk. I was just
you're just not used to seeing them on me because I bend the hell out of my hats. But
are you ever gonna go like in the middle? Are you gonna keep it flat bill for the look?
For Beckett, this hat stays like this because I want to look ridiculous when I wear it.
Well, have you considered that maybe this is why that podcast was made about you? Like, I feel like those are the suspicions that brought about. Now you're going to see the podcasters are going to talk about you again. You already exposed once. You're messing with these forces that you're trifling with.
I'm going to keep that flat because that is just the utter nonsense that I want to show off when it comes to that crap ass company.
There you go. All right. So let's finish it up on this, guys. Right now, I think this was a good episode. It actually had a really good conversation. We went into a couple of different directions. I'll include a link in the description. By the way, if you are curious, I'll include a link in the description to the technical versus market grading. I understand it's not cards. I get it's a different genre, but you would learn a lot sometimes looking into some of these other things because they've dealt with the same types of questions and the same types of issues, and they're already like 10, 15, 20 years ahead of us on having this discussion. So to the point that they can have seminars talking about the differences in these things. And again, if you just want to read the description of the video, it actually gives you a definition on this stuff. So if you just want to skim the description, then just read the description. You'll still get something out of it, I think. I leave it to you. I'll leave a link to it in the description for you. But let's do one thing. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking football today. Sorry, no black and white. Sorry, Brandon. We're not going to the past. We're gonna keep it quick today. Let me do one trivia question for you guys though. Let's do the Deshaun Watson-o-meter. Deshaun did have a better game. They still lost because he still sucks. However, now we've got 6-game sample size. Let's use my favorite QBR. Gentlemen, I'm going to let you guess the QBR for the whole season. So it's had the opportunity to level out. We've had 2 below 10. We've had 2 weeks that were below 10, right? 0 to 100 scale. 100 being perfect, 50 being average, and obviously he's had some games below 10, but obviously the rest of the games have not been below 10. My question is going to be, what is his QBR average through 6 games? So he's had an opportunity to level it out over a 6-game sample size this season so far. I've got it right in front of me. 0 to 100, what is your guess?
Go ahead, Eric.
22.
All right.
I'm going to say 34.6.
All right. I want to tell you guys something. While Eric and the podcast did tell us the truth, while Eric may be the worst NHL picker of all time, he may be a QBR savant. The Deshaun Watson 6-game average was 21.5. He was within 0.5.
Nice.
Nearly bang on, Eric. This may be your thing. The QBR may be your thing.
Right? Maybe.
By the way, that ranks him as the 31st, at the very bottom, 31st of quarterbacks here that have played at least 6 games, 5-6 games. Now, 30th in the league is the Mayo Man himself, Will Levis, at 28.3. Thematically appropriate, I feel. And then after that, we bump up all the way to 40 for Gardner Minshew.
Ooh.
There's a big gap between the Mayo Man and Deshaun. They're in a league all their own.
You know what's crazy, though, is in all seriousness, you talk about the gap in QBR, the gap in contracts between Deshaun Watson and Gardner Minshew. Holy hell.
It's massive. Listen, higher than Deshaun, and I'm not going to go the whole list, but I'll just pick a few names here. So Gardner Minshew is 29th. Jacoby Brissett is 40.1.
And it's bad.
And he's on the bench.
And he's playing bad. And he's been benched.
It's bad.
Ahead of him, Bo Nix.
Oh.
Ahead of him here, Daniel Jones, Justin Fields. I'm just picking some bad names. And then one
Fields
of the
is
ones
benched, isn't he?
I think he is.
Or they were
but here's a good one for you.
They were discussing it, yeah.
So here's a good one for you. Number 4 in the league in QBR so far, Joe Flacco. Wacko for Flacco. Let's go.
Did you see his play yesterday?
Not specifically.
Like, literally, I think the man is getting more agile as he gets older. He was backpedaling.
Do we need to bring the pump back?
No,
Is Jason Robinson pump and Joe Flacco pump?
There's no pump here. Like, the man is putting on the performance himself. There is no pumping him. I don't have to. He is showing off. He was backpedaling. His old ass was backpedaling, got away from a sack, threw it up, and scored the damn touchdown. Like, the only thing he didn't do was stiff arm the guy like Lamar did. Okay, no, it was nowhere near Lamar's, but it was still impressive.
Somebody's
all
on
I'm going to say,
12 method.
all I'm going to say is that Joe Flacco is 4th in the league in QBR. The next 3 guys, 5th, 6th, and 7th, behind Wacko for Flacco in QBR are the Purdy Party, Lamar, and CJ Stroud. Joe Flacco is ahead of all 3 of those. The only people ahead of him are Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Jaden Daniels in the highest QBR so far this season.
Burrow is that high?
Yep.
That's
almost
weird,
75. Remember this stat takes into account what he's actually doing with when he's throwing the ball, the specific plays themselves.
Yeah,
it's not looking at results. It's looking at this. It's looking at what they're actually doing with their games, and it's game by game. Each game is individual.
They played Eric's Mayo team week 1, and they look like trash.
Yep. So I can tell you right now, I've got it in front of me. Let's see. So I've got, let me go here, recent games. Let me just grab all of them here. All right, when he played the Mayo team, his QBR was 44.1, which tells you how bad Deshaun being 21 for the season is. Tells you how bad that is. But since then, he rebounded 71, 76, 85.8 against Carolina, 75.9, almost 76 against Baltimore. And then against the Giants, it was 87.7. So he's had some monster games in there that had kind of boosted the overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, he's been good this season in terms of that stat. But I thought it was funny. I thought I would share that to Deshaun Watson. 31st out of 31 on that list, right there. And he continues to be the starter.
I want to say on rookie terms, since you mentioned Stroud and he was the talk last year.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys watched the Ravens and Redskins or Commanders, my bad.
The commies.
Yeah. I do want to say that was a good game. Baltimore obviously won, but Jaden Daniels is going to be a good quarterback. And the timing and accuracy he had with Terry McLaurin, especially on that little out route on 4th down when like it was either you catch it or you turn the ball over, that was impressive because he put that ball where only McLaurin, like if McLaurin didn't catch it, it was his fault, but nobody else was catching it. And to see that on that young of a player and have that chemistry with obviously McLaurin's a good wide receiver, that's pretty good. If they can keep them two together and continue, because that team's kind of they're pieced together right now. They picked up some players to be competitive. They didn't really expect to be where they are already. And if they can put some talent around him, I'm not a Washington fan by no means. I am, obviously local in the area, but they could, like watching that game yesterday, he can be a good quarterback in this league. That kid was impressive.
He threw
There you
one
go.
pass that if I had tried to catch it, would have taken both hands right off. I just have little stubs. He would just gone. My hands would be gone. The highlights. I was really impressed with the highlights this morning, and on some of the throws that he made. And there was just one in particular that I mean I can still remember seeing it from this morning. That I was just like, Jesus, that ball was moving. It was just a dart. It was a dime. And again, these really good quarterbacks don't have to come all the way back and come all the way through. This kid just went. I mean, his arm barely moved, and this thing was going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. Well, it helps basically to get it out quickly, because if you don't have a big long motion, it actually helps you get the ball out quicker and safer.
It just flicked his wrist, and I'm telling that ball was
as a Ravens fan, and the Ravens played a really good game on both sides of the ball. There was some there were some shit plays with pass interference and stuff, but that happens. But I want to give Washington even more credit because they didn't have their their best running back, and that game was still close. So that shows that they are, for as young as that team is, to stay with a team who many are saying has the top offense in the league in Baltimore, and to keep that game close without having your best running back, that speaks a lot because they played a hell of a game. So,
yeah.
There you go. Gives Washington something to look forward to, and I think it'll be fun to see how the kid does the rest of the season. Playing well so far, though, and I will say I'm looking right now. I enjoy a good storyline, so I don't have any problem with Washington one way or the other. If they get a player who's playing well, good for them. I think that's it. More talent in the league is good.
It's been a long time since they've been good. I mean,
yeah,
I would say the last time Cousins had a little bit of hope for him, but I think the last time that the team and the fans and stuff were excited was probably RG3.
Yeah, he had the potential until he basically
days.
got hurt. Once he got hurt, that was kind of it for them. And like I said, it can't just be Joe Flacco carrying the league. We gotta have some help. We get the man some help. I can't just. Brandon's already driving the bandwagon. Like there's only so much he can do. He needs some help. They need a few more people to help carry the load here a little bit. So that'll be it for us. Like I said, we'll touch on briefly, but we'll touch on it more next week. And like I said, the game of the week here has been going the entire time, and Pittsburgh is up 5-3. So there you go.
Ooh.
So it's going. I don't think I didn't see any Malkin goals, so he's not closer to 500 yet. So good luck to him for the rest of the season. We'll see how it goes. Nonetheless. So that'll be it for us this time around. Thanks everybody for checking this one out. A more streamlined episode. We had a good conversation though in that one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, we have a little bit of fun with some of these, but if you do got some thoughts, feel free to share on them. I will do the community post of the silly card of the week. And this week, boy, did we have a doozy. A humdinger.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep. And it went completely in the realm of PG. Not really, not so much. It's a lot more manual in space than we were expecting. It was a lot more manual in space than we were expecting and old Eric got the ball rolling on that one. So there's no one else he can blame but himself on this matter. He may not be into, the robot AI grading may not be up to snuff, but the robot AI cyclists seem to be working for him.
I got nothing.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't add anything. You shouldn't incriminate yourself any more than you already have. Maybe that should be the end of that. Anyway, so you can send all your AI, mountain biking robot pictures to Sanderson D'Or on Instagram. You can reach out directly to him for that and give him his feedback. Brandon, Baubles and Ball Cards, known associate at 540 Flips. So we were able to have a nice conversation with a known associate. We do know he knows people. There's some connection there. I don't know it yet, but there's some connection.
I want names.
See, Brandon looks like he's about to incriminate himself. He looks like he wants to say something.
Oh,
Hit
no.
the like buttons. Yeah, there you go. Hit the like button so that Eric pays for it as always. We'll be back with a live stream on Friday as always. The longest running episodic, whatever it is, that is 210. Forthcoming is episode 210 on the longest running episodic, whatever it is. Maybe we'll talk some Emmanuel in space, robotic cyclists. Don't think that won't come up. Just throwing it out there. But nonetheless, that'll be it for this time around. Thank you very much. 2 episodes away from the spooktacular. We're getting closer now. We'll catch you in the next one. See ya.
Thanks, everybody.